In a quiet old house, a retired man begins to suspect that the ceiling above him is breathing, slowly, deliberately, as if something alive lingers just beyond the plaster. As the rhythm deepens and strange impressions form overhead, his grip on reality begins to loosen. Is it madness creeping in? Or is the house waking up? Step into a psychological horror where the line between perception and truth fades, and the ceiling may be the last thing you ever look up to. The house was quiet, but not in a way that consoled. The kind of quiet that bends the ears forward, listening for something that hasn't happened yet. The old plaster ceiling in the sitting room had always been a bit irregular, bulging slightly near the center, a flaw dismissed as time's erosion, but lately it seemed different. Not just a flaw anymore. Presence. Arthur Mallory, 62 and newly retired, noticed it first in the hush between afternoon and evening. The time when the world stills, shadows lengthen, and the house seems to hold its breath. He sat in the same wingback chair he always had, facing the mantel where the clock no longer ticked, and began to feel that the room itself was gently pulsing, like the inhalation and exhalation of some great, unseen lung. He said nothing to his wife at first. Not when the ceiling swelled almost imperceptibly as if it were drawing in air. Not when it sank back again like a soft sigh. He told himself it was his eyes, or a draft, or the shift of old materials. But as the days passed, the movement became rhythmic, deliberate. He began spending more time in that room watching, testing it with long silences, holding his breath to match its cadence. Sometimes he thought he could hear a faint creak when it expanded, as though the beams themselves were groaning with breath. It did not occur at night, only in the afternoons, during that lull between noise and darkness. "I think the house is settling," he told his wife Martha one evening, not looking up from his tea. "Have you noticed anything odd about the ceiling?" Martha, pragmatic and tireless, dismissed it with a wave. "It's an old house. Course it settles. You need something to do. Go outside more." But he didn't want to go outside. Outside was wind and randomness. Inside was consistency, pattern, a living rhythm. Arthur started recording it. He marked the moments it moved in a notebook. 3:47 p.m., inhale. 3:52 p.m., exhale. He calculated the intervals, measured its regularity. Pattern changed. Sometimes the rhythm was hurried, like the breathing of a frightened animal. Sometimes it was slow, nearly imperceptible, as if sleeping. He told himself it was air pressure, a trick of aging architecture. But then there were the impressions, faint at first, on the white plaster, as if fingers had lightly brushed across from the inside. Indentations that smoothed themselves back as the ceiling deflated. He touched them with the tip of a broomstick and found them warm. Warmer than they should be. He stopped sleeping well. The ceiling invaded his dreams. He saw it heave like a chest underwater, slow and powerful. Spoke without words, just breath and shape. He never remembered the details when he woke, only that there was a sensation of wanting, of something waiting just above him, patient, eternal. Martha grew concerned. He didn't join her for breakfast anymore. His eyes became glassy, fixed upward. He rarely blinked. She called the doctor, who suggested a change in routine. Post-retirement disorientation, he called it. Perfectly common. Get him engaged again. Arthur agreed to take a walk, but only if he could return before the breathing began. The outside didn't feel right anymore. The world was too loud, the sky too open. He needed containment. The soft, deliberate respiration of the ceiling had become a reassurance. The house began to smell strange. Not putrid but organic. Like breath trapped in wool. Arthur said nothing, only opened the windows when Martha complained. She joked that the house had come alive, and his face turned solemn. "It has," he said. One afternoon, he climbed the stepladder with the false intention of dusting the light fixture. He pressed his palm flat against the ceiling's surface. It expanded beneath his hand. He swore he felt something pulse in reply. Not quite a heartbeat. Slower. older. It didn't frighten him. It comforted him. Like being acknowledged. Martha caught him there. Standing on the ladder. Hand pressed against the ceiling, eyes closed. Her laughter was tight with worry. "What are you doing?" "It's breathing," he whispered. She left the room. She began calling the doctor again. Arthur didn't notice. He had begun humming in sync with the inhalations. A quiet sound, not unlike a lullaby. The ceiling changed again. The indentations became clearer. Not fingers but outlines. Shapes not quite human. Profiles etched in faint relief like things pressing close from the other side. It reminded him of fish brushing against the walls of an aquarium. Always watching, testing. Then came the whispering. Only when he was alone. In the half-light just before dusk. The ceiling didn't speak, not really. But thoughts occurred to him that were not his. Ideas curled through his mind like smoke. Questions that hadn't existed a moment before. Are you comfortable? Isn't it better here? Isn't it quieter without her? Martha began sleeping in the guest room. "You talk in your sleep," she said. "You make these noises like you're matching something. Breathing with something." He didn't deny it. He couldn't remember sleeping. She made arrangements to stay with her sister. Just for a while. Just until Arthur stabilized. That evening, alone in the sitting room, Arthur turned off every light. He sat in the dark and waited. The ceiling exhaled slowly above him. He pressed his palm to his chest and matched it. The room became smaller. Not physically. But in some invisible, unspeakable way, it tightened. The ceiling seemed lower, though the ruler confirmed otherwise. The air was thick, heavy with anticipation. He began spending nights in that room. At first in the chair, then on the floor directly beneath the pulse. He no longer needed blankets. The warmth from above was enough. When Martha returned 2 weeks later, she found the front door open. Dust in the entryway. Teacup on the floor. The whole house held a silence she hadn't known it capable of. She found him in the sitting room, lying on his back. Open. Unmoving. But breathing. Very slowly. Very deliberately. In perfect rhythm with the ceiling above. The plaster bulged slightly downward. Just above him. When the doctors came, they found no medical explanation. He was physically healthy. But he no longer responded. No speech, no movement beyond his breathing. They moved him to a facility. They replastered the ceiling. Scraped the bulge away. Painted it over. But it returned. A week later, the new tenant complained of drafts. Then of voices. Then of dreams. The ceiling moved at 3:47 p.m. Then again at 3:52. The room, when empty, still held the faint smell of something warm and close. Something alive. Final note asterisk. No one ever saw what was above the ceiling. No one ever broke through. And no one ever asked where Arthur had gone, not really. He had merely settled. Into the rhythm. Into the pattern. The ceiling still breathes even now. Quietly. Patiently. Waiting for someone else to match its pace.